Josh, what's happening? How are you?
Hey, what's going on, Mark? It's good to see you, man.
Good to see you. Good to see you. What's going on? How's the holidays been?
It's been good, man. I've been working quite a bit through the holidays, but when you've got a dream, you've got a goal, you've got to grind, you got to put the extra time in, and we're just trying to get ahead and hit 2025 with a sprint. But it's been great, man. I've had some good family moments. I've been able to spend some time with my kids. My baby girl celebrated her second Christmas, but probably her first Christmas that she'll actually somewhat remember, because she was a baby the first Christmas. So it was cool seeing her get all excited, come out, and see all these presents under the tree that weren't there the day before, and then seeing her like tear open all the packages. It was definitely a blessed moment, to be able to experience that.
Oh, that's exciting. Congrats, man. I'm so excited for you.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah. And I'm just curious, with all the brands you guys are operating, how was Q4? How did it wrap up overall?
Yeah, Q4, we had some businesses that did pretty well, that met or exceeded our goals. We had some other businesses that didn't, but it's just because we were coming out of a very stressful, challenging second half of 2024. We had a lot of things that if we can go back in time in early 2024 and do differently, we would, because it led to a domino effect where we just didn't have quite as much resources in our e-com companies as we would have liked to set up a strong fifth quarter in e-com, terms, Black Friday to, mid-January. So, we had some businesses, like I said, that did well, but, overall, we could have done better. It was a domino effect leading into the late in the year that unfortunately put us in a position where we just didn't have quite as much resources to be able to really capitalize on, the buying heat that the markets are in during, the fourth quarter of the year.
Totally. Yeah, I think overall, the consensus was it was not an easy Q4. And brands that one like have solid momentum at the moment, just like any of them have throughout growth phases, and then some of them just had to grind out every last ad dollar, email, SMS, to just drain revenue as much as possible. But it's that's how the game works. So it's not being in it for 1 or 2 years. It's doing it for for years on end and decades to really really grow something substantial. Yeah,
Totally. You gotta be a boxer. You gotta keep getting up. After you get hit, sometimes you have wins, sometimes you have losses.
totally. Absolutely. And I think, obviously the last couple of years has been a wake up call to a lot of more, I'll say, younger operators in the ecom game that, just had win over win during COVID. And the harsh truth is that's not reality for business overall.
Right. True. Well, yeah. I mean, you've got to have thick skin, to be a business owner. You got to weather the good times and the bad times. You got to stay level throughout. I think that's the key.
Totally. Well, let's get into tell us a little bit about ARM5 and what you're building right now.
Yeah. So we're building an e-commerce empire. So I went from, as you know, marketing agency between 2013 and late 2021 to becoming an e-commerce aggregator in early 2022. And we're still an e-commerce aggregator, and we will be for the next several years. So, we have learned so much on this journey that we've been on. So the initial dream was to do 2 to 3 $100 million plus exits, ideally through roll-ups. And just like any other dream, sometimes it changes a little bit, and now it doesn't have to be like a roll up. It could be an individual business scaling up and selling for 9+ figures. But we still want to accomplish 2 to 3 $100 million plus exits by 2029. That's always been the dream that's kind of guided us in becoming an e-commerce aggregator from 2022 on. And so now, we have a small portfolio of e-com companies. We've got several e-com companies that we're close to acquiring here in the next 90 days, that will really, really put massive increases in our cash flow and revenues and profits overall in our company. And then we're just going to continue to execute throughout 2025 and continue to buy 1 to 2 businesses every quarter. So this way we can just drive hard towards getting to 100 million in annual revenue by the end of 2025. So that's what we're focused on right now. A big part of our business has been in raising capital, helping investors be able to create wealth and buy back their time and live their best life as well. That's been a big driving force throughout what we're doing because we're not really necessarily trying to accomplish these big exits for ourselves. We're doing it for our investors. And in my opinion, I think that's the best way to do it, just because when you're doing it altruistically for people other than yourself, it means more, and you have more good pressure, healthy pressure applied on you. And something I'm really passionate about. I'm really passionate about helping people live their best life. And so, we're continuing to raise lots of capital. We're continuing to have impacts on helping people build wealth. This way they can create their best lives for themselves. And we're doing that also with our e-commerce aggregator, which is growing. That was an Inc. 5000 company in 2024 and has some big liquidity plans. I'll just leave it at that in 2025 as we explore the public markets.
That's exciting. Wow. It's so cool to see, from just a couple of years ago, I remember when we were, shooting each other referrals here and there for agency work. And obviously that's still the game I'm in. But to see the shift that you've made and the leap into the aggregator model is pretty cool. And just overall for people that, are listening to this, like that don't necessarily understand what an e-commerce aggregator is, what is an e-commerce aggregator and what makes you different from like a traditional mini PE org, that might be doing something similar?
Sure. So an e-commerce aggregator is a company that gathers, aggregates e-com companies. So we find established, successful, profitable e-commerce companies that we that pass our due diligence process, our vetting process, our internal approval process, and then we buy them, bring them into portfolio to manage them, scale them up using our ARM5 formula. This way we can unlock lots of value out of that company, and also for all investors that we have within that company or our overall portfolio, because we have also investors in our parent company. So that's what an e-commerce aggregator is, and that's what we are as well. What makes us different from other e-com aggregators? There's several different reasons, in my opinion. So for one, most e-com aggregators they don't raise their own capital directly. Some e-com aggregators have gone to the public markets like Thrasio and have raised capital, but most e-com aggregators don't raise their own capital and they don't know how. And I know that because I'm in those circles with those e-com aggregators. For example, I'm in a private chat with a bunch of those e-com aggregator owners, and I let them know how much capital we raise, how we were able to do it at 1,000% plus return on ad spend, and they were like, "Whoa, how? Can you share? Do you mind getting on a call with me?" And I talked to a few of them, and so most of them don't really know how to raise their own capital through their own direct response marketing and strategies and funnels like we do. So what makes us different is our ability to leverage digital marketing strategies and raise capital for one, because that allows us to raise our own capital by businesses. That allows us to raise capital for growth. So that's definitely a big advantage. Besides that, something that I kind of carried over from my agency days was building a team around me that could carry on with what I felt like was my superpower with ecom businesses when I used to work with ecom businesses directly as an agency owner through coaching or client services, which is helping e-commerce businesses be able to apply high level direct response internet marketing strategies. Because most ecom businesses, at least in my experience, they know how to operate an ecom business. They're good at creating a product or finding a product. They're good at running the business overall, but they're not the best marketers. And they typically have left lots of opportunities in their business where they could really add more revenue, more profits, whether it's front end funnels or back end funnels or follow up marketing. There's multiple different holes that I've consistently seen in ecom businesses and also in their owners. And so I wanted to extend that when I was creating the ARM5 Formula Company e-commerce aggregator by hiring other internet marketers that understood those high-level internet marketing strategies. This way, we could collectively unlock a lot more value out of the ecom businesses that we own or co-own with partners. And so I feel like that is also something that separates us from a lot of those ecom aggregators out there. We really have focused a lot on internet marketing strategies and applying the internet marketing strategies to our ecom companies and hiring people that know those strategies. That's been a big part of our vision. I call it the dream team. It's kind of inspired by the 92 dream team. I'm a big basketball fan. And, in my opinion, that's been the best team. Although the Redeem team with Kobe leading it, and then this last, USA team here in 2024 was a pretty incredible team as well. But I mean, you gotta respect the OGs of the original Dream Team, in my opinion. So I've kind of created my team with the Dream Team in mind. So those are the two biggest things, in my opinion.
Very cool. And I'm curious, just how did you get started in this world in the first place?
Well, I was in corporate America from 2005 to 2012, fairly successful. According to those standards, it's different, as an entrepreneur. I was making just under six figures a year, which again, to those standards were solid. And so I was pretty comfortable. I was successful. But the company I was working for at the time had a lot of corporate changes happening in 2011 and 2012. And they were impacting my ability to make more money faster or to promote and get into positions that challenged me more because I had been in my position for several years. And I'm a guy that's all about continuing to challenge myself, continuing to grow. And I'm also, money motivated as well. And so that led me to considering working at Infusionsoft, which is now known as Keep. I had some friends there that basically sold me on coming over and switching careers. And I decided to do that in 2012. And I went from basically being a sales manager in my previous career to being a sales rep at Infusionsoft Keep. And it was pretty humbling, honestly. And I should have known that going back into a sales role was not where I wanted to be. And and so I did okay. Like during my time at Infusionsoft, now known as Keep, in 2012, I was 108% to quota for the year, but I wasn't happy. And I think that there was times where when it came out, and I didn't really jive with my second manager there that was there towards the end of my tenure. And so at the end of 2012, he let me go. He fired me. And there's a whole story behind that. But anyway, I won't go into that. So I decided to right away test my waters freelancing. And I started selling Infusionsoft services, consulting and implementation services, helping companies be able to use Infusionsoft at a higher level and also implement Infusionsoft into their businesses. So this way they could see more ROI from the software. And so that's what got me started. And then, over the years, I pivoted several times just because, right away, I was figuring it out as I went, like any other brand new entrepreneur. I was figuring out that I had a passion for not doing workflow automation and automating businesses, but actually getting marketing results because I had always been a results driven professional in my corporate life and in my previous careers. And so I switched to just doing marketing for businesses instead of just doing just about anything for businesses using Infusionsoft. And then that led to me just becoming a marketer and developing myself as a marketer and reading books, going through courses, getting mentors over the years, and then also scaling my agency up to becoming a performance marketing agency that was focused on only e-commerce businesses, traditionally 7+ figure e-commerce businesses, and helping them apply our ARM5 formula, which was a marketing methodology that we established in early 2020 that was because of strategies and processes that we were consistently applying to e-commerce businesses over the previous few years that were leading to pretty significant, powerful return on ad spend results. And that's what happened. And I also decided to become a business owner because I was a single dad at the time. That was really the biggest reason. Because I could have easily, just said, "Hey, I'm just going to go get another job." But I didn't want to be that type of father where I was always like overstressed on creating time for my son. And so that was also a powerful motivator back then when I started my business was I really wanted to create a schedule around my son. And so that's why I started my business. So that's what happened in a nutshell.
That's awesome. We have a very similar story. Like I was working at an agency and I got pushed out in a similar fashion. Like was working 14, 15 hours a day, sending reports until midnight. And that's how I got into starting Davos Digital that we rebranded as Breadloaf as well. 2016. And then, so you started as the agency, but then you also shifted at one point to more of like an accelerator coaching model, right?
I added it to my business. Like we still had the client services, but I added it. Yeah, it was fairly successful. I definitely could have scaled it further, but I enjoyed it, when I did it for the 12 plus months that I did it. But yes, that's correct. I did have an accelerator at one point.
And then what actually got you to spark the interest or like make the shift from service provider to essentially aggregator?
Yeah, well, I mean, I was burnt out on selling services. The good clients I always loved working with, and I always had a blast working with, and I loved talking to results. But there's just, the agency game is, I saw back then it was just a very much it was a bloody game. It was a dog eat dog world, and agencies were becoming commoditized. And I also knew that you really can't really build a whole lot of wealth as a standard agency. And we weren't even a standard agency, we were a productized agency. But even then, it was just like, really hard to be able to scale it up and really build a lot of wealth for yourself. And I just knew that if I really wanted to make a dent into building wealth for myself, I couldn't stay in agency. And I had to move in a different direction, and I had to scale up my own brands. And so that notion, that motive, just it led to me learning from guys like Patch Baker, Roland Frazier, and Adam Lyons, several others on how to buy businesses, sometimes for even zero down. And I have done that for zero down. And this way I could start to build assets and build e-com companies up that I had direct equity in. This way I could really generate wealth from these businesses versus applying the same time, energy, and resources into e-com clients. So, that's where it all came from is just I knew going as far back as probably 2018 or so that I wanted to go in that direction. I just didn't know how. Seeing Native Commerce ran by Ryan Dice and Perry Belcher and their portfolio brands and how they were generating revenue, profits, and wealth there, and then seeing a friend of mine who was a bit of a mentor for me as well, Patch Baker, buy and sell businesses in 2020, and he made over 9+ figures in 2020, according to him, and I believe him. And so I just knew I wanted to get out of it. And then finally, we had a former mentor, we were, Ollie Bilson, as you know, and he knew that I wanted to go in that direction. He could sense it. And so he had talked to me and built a relationship with me for a while. And he told me on a hot seat back in early 2020, I needed to sell my agency. And so, from that point on, I decided to sell my agency so I could pivot, so I could move in that direction.
I
And
remember that mastermind. Actually, I was there in person.
I
I
know you were.
remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Did you see the shock on my face when he
Yes.
told me
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
I think he actually made you like make some phone calls that day.
yeah, that's true. He did. He sent me in the other room and had me do that. I remember that now. Yeah, I was shocked because I didn't think that an exit in my agency was going to come that fast. I thought we still had work to do and we had to grow the business more for us to be able to do that. But, he said I could, and I was like, okay, well then, yeah, I definitely want to make that happen. But it wasn't, that easy. We had 3 potential buyers in 2020 that signed LOIs that all fell out for different reasons. It had nothing to do with my business, according to what they told me. They just fell out for different reasons. The third business that it was supposed to buy my business, that was supposed to be an SBA loan, and it kept getting dragged and dragged, and then he just disappeared after months of talking to me and working with me and having an extended LOI. He just disappeared. It was literally right after my birthday, because I remember Halloween 2020 COVID, I threw a big Halloween party in Dick Van Dyke's old house that I rented. It was a pretty incredible party. Um,
Sounds incredible.
it
Sounds
was,
cool.
it was until the cops broke it up. But anyway, and and then shortly after that, it just all fell apart. And again, he just disappeared on me. And then I went into 2021 and found another buyer. And then he did close. He bought 50% of my company, but he didn't hit his payment milestones. There seemed to be a little friction in the direction where we were going and what we were doing. It had to do with we had clients and we had limited resources, and he wanted us to put our resources more into his ecom brands, which is the reason why he was buying the agency. But if we did that, we would lose all that revenue that we had. And so he didn't understand that he would have to invest and hit those payment milestones for us to be able to switch our focus to our shared vision, which is scale up his brands and find other brands and scale up the overall portfolio. But because he couldn't stomach that, him and I amicably dissolved the partnership. But unfortunately, it left my agency as a shell of its former numbers, basically because we reduced our client count purposely, and so 2021 was a grind to get it back on track. And then at the end of 2021, I also signed an LOI to sell my agency to another buyer who was going to bring us in along with a software company and a B2B wholesale company into the mix. And we were going to create an ecom aggregator. But his vision was born from my vision. His vision was just a little different from my vision. He also saw the software component. He also saw the B2B wholesale component. He wanted to create an ecom ecosystem basically with where we can offer lots of value for ecom businesses that come into our ecosystem through payment processing, through B2B wholesale, and through software, and then through partnering or buying and scaling their companies, which is what we were going to do. That unfortunately fell apart because even though we had a great meeting in New York to raise capital with a bank in New York, the software company owner wouldn't sign off his business to the guy that was leading this collective. And I saw it coming. And so what I did is I took action. I started to sign LOIs to buy businesses myself. Started to have those conversations with potential buyers, letting them know that, hey, this deal is falling apart. I do want to buy your business, but we need to change the deal. Can we work something out? And I was able to buy a few businesses right after that fell apart. And the rest is history. That was like the first domino that led to where we're at now.
That's awesome. So those first deals, like what did that look like? Was that just you buying for zero cash down? Did you get a couple of investors, or were you starting to talk with some investors, or did the investor like bringing in private investors come later on?
So what happened was I had a few LOIs that I was able to finalize that was born out of that dissolution of the potential partnership between me and those three business owners. And and then I just went to my email list, and I had an email list that was pretty substantial of ecom businesses. It wasn't investors, and I let them know, hey, this is where we're at. This is what we're doing. This is where we're going. We have some opportunities to buy some businesses. We're looking for some investors. We're looking for investors that want to invest. I think I said 25,000 at the time, and it was kind of inspired by the ecom automation store model. But the only difference is that I never wanted to put investors into new risky ecom businesses. I always wanted to put investors into established ecom businesses, and
You
so
mean
always stayed that
you
way.
didn't want to build a drop shipping site for them for a couple $100 and connect it with the product?
Exactly, exactly.
What a racket that was forever, you
I
know?
know,
By
I
the way, you know
know.
how many of those guys are going to jail right now?
I've seen a few of those people. I've seen articles about it.
Yeah, there are
Yeah,
quite a few. The feds are cracking down on them right now. Yeah.
yeah. It's a very fine line, between being motivated to make money and being ethical and doing the right thing. You have to keep yourself in check, as you're money motivated, and you have to constantly revisit that and just make sure that your ethics and your heart is guiding you first, in my opinion. And yeah, I definitely you know s- I sense that that was just a very unethical model, just because and I know how hard it is to get results using marketing.
If it was that easy to just put in 25 grand to an Amazon automation or, drop shipping and the sad thing is like a lot of these guys doing this were like, I remember hearing stories of guys, people just like trying to figure out how to sell anything online and being like, I figured out a way to get a $25,000, $50,000 check. And, everything that they were doing was completely against terms and conditions, right? They were telling investors, I will build you this Shopify store and connect all these products and make it profitable in 3 to 6 months. And yet their model was to tie in drop shipping, which was against Meta's terms and conditions. And they were saying that Meta was going to be the driver of the traffic. So it was the same with Amazon, saying like, we'll build you an Amazon FBA store, but we all know that that model of like drop shipping through Amazon was against their terms and conditions as well. So quite interesting. And it's, when you, especially when you're taking someone and you're selling something as an investment, there's a fiduciary responsibility, whether, you're, whatever you're doing, even on the agency side with what we do, I tell our clients, like, I can't take your money if I don't feel good that we can actually make you more with it, you know? Yeah. I actually have an interesting story. Like, later, and this was like one of my close friends. They have another agency, and they have a SaaS product that they're launching right now. And they came to us, and they said, "Hey, we want you guys to build out a site, and building it on Webflow." And we do Webflow work, but being in this like kind of SaaS B2B space is a little out of our realm because we essentially, when you're building a SaaS site or a B2B SaaS site, you don't have the same access to assets like you do with ecom, right? Where you have product photography, lifestyle photography, like visuals. We had to create all these, essentially flat design from scratch. And we worked on it for about 8 weeks. And, it was a project I'm doing for some friends. We're grinding out on it. We finally got to the point where they were like, we're just not happy with this. And I said, you know what? You guys are my friends. If you're not happy with it, I'll give you guys a full refund. And like, give them a full refund last week. It was for half of the project. And it was like, to me, especially with friends, it's not worth the money at all. It's not worth it. But yeah, it's, taking people's money to invest in it. I'm sure you have these conversations a lot, but that was so risky of starting something from scratch, selling snake oil versus what you're doing, which is buying real businesses that have real value, IP, inventory, prior financials, credit, all of these proprietary assets that you don't get by just whipping out a credit card and having someone build you a front-facing site and connect into a supply chain overnight. If it was that easy, everyone would do it.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yep. I agree, man. I mean, it just backs up, the decisions we made when we decided to go down this path, back in early 2022. Because I even had, in late 2021, I had this director of operations that was working underneath me, Brian, and we were just brainstorming direction. And he suggested that we sell brand new e-com automation stores, and I completely shut it down. And I was like, no, like that's not right. It's going to rip off people. There's too much risk there. It's not going to do right next to people. So yeah, I agree, man. You got to do right next to people. Bottom line, in business, no matter what it is that you're offering.
100%, 100%. So curious when it comes to like obviously you're evaluating a lot of deals right now. I'm assuming you always have deal flow, have access.
Too much of it.
What is it? I can't imagine like how many, there's so many brands right now in this Shopify D2C environment that have been operating for 5, 10, 15 years now and are almost like, we'll use they're almost in this, what's the best word to describe it? In this like zombie state, right? Where it's like, they're operating and they're doing the same thing. They might have a little growth, they might have a little downside, but it's the founders are, let's call them, tired of the business because they've been operating for a long time it's not doing the revenue it needs. And like these businesses really need to be doing at least 250K to 300K to really take any money a month, to just take any money out of them, right? To reinvest and to pay a dividend. And let's say a lot of fallacies is you got a 100K a month D2C business. That's pretty much a glorified job, right? If you don't have the goal to grow to multiple 6 figures, 7 figures a month, that thing really will be zombified over time, unless you're comfortable with just taking home 5, 10, 15K and in living your life. So I'm assuming you evaluate a lot of businesses like this out there. What do you look for in businesses? I'm curious, like what's the most important things that you look for when you're evaluating these companies before you approach them to potentially put it into an LOI?
Yeah. So, healthy cash flow is definitely up there over the last 12 months, for one. Also, just having a very strong supply chain with their manufacturing, whether they directly manufacture or they lean on a supplier out there that does the manufacturing for them. Just making sure that they have a really strong supply chain that is sustainable and can scale as well. And then customer reviews is important too. You want to have positive overall customer reviews. It's not necessarily trying to find like a brand that has a flagship product, for example, that has 5-star reviews. It's pretty rare, especially with thousands of reviews. You're going to have people that complain. You want overall positive reviews, basically. Besides that, some other things that we look for is, we look for marketing performance that is creating positive profits. That's super important. This way we can essentially throw gas on the fire and scale it up even further and continue to do what they've been doing, and then even optimize it further and add in additional marketing strategies, channels, et cetera, to be able to scale it further. Tenure is important. We want a business that isn't just a flash in the pan business that's just showing success in the last 6, 12 months, but ideally a business has been around for 2+ years at minimum. No drop shipping. We've talked about that. And then, some other perks, those are kind of like the requirements. But some other perks that we look at or look for would be like health and beauty based businesses that have a subscription offer, ideally in the business. This way we have more predictable revenue in the business that we're buying into, which is, lower risk for us, which is nice. As you can imagine, trademarks, IPs, those make a lot of sense as well. If we could find businesses that have that, because that means that the business's value is more justified and possibly even higher than what we're buying it at due to the assets that are included. Email list size, text message list size, social media audience size, that all factors in too. So we look at all those, different things. No debt in the business. And if there is debt, we make sure to sign papers that say that the previous owner keeps it post sale. We don't take it, unless we agree to that due to maybe getting a reduction on the price for the business or something like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Like that really covers everything that we're reviewing, kind of checking off, and then also trying to screen for as well when we're looking to buy a business.
That's cool. And I'm curious, how does your acquisition model work? Do you guys usually get a deal like in offer, or in a certain phase, and then you're looking to find specific investors to bring into that deal? Or is it you guys have more of a rolling fund where you have capital that you're looking to allocate? How does the deal match with the acquisition and the investor?
Sure. So we're using the SEC's Reg CF. A private equity fund requires a 506D or 506A. For example, 506D is accredited investors. 506A is where you can work with non-accredited investors and you can crowdfund across the internet, for example. But we're using the Reg CF to do syndicated individual investment opportunities into individual companies. So our process is we find a business, we go through the due diligence, we make an offer, we go back and forth probably, we get to a final offer, we sign off on the LOI, And then after the LOI is signed off, we start a second due diligence. And this is where I pull in my operations and let them give me a green light on the business. So this way we have multiple people as a part of the decision. And if they give me the green lights, then we proceed. And then we also start to market the business and the investment opportunity to our audience. And then we raise capital. So when we decide we're going to buy a business, we decide on how much of the equity we're going to give to investors and sell to investors. Usually it's about 10 to 20% of a company. And then from there, we essentially kind of break it up into spots. Although the spots may not mean much, we could have someone come in and snatch up all the equity, possibly, for example. But we just try to make it simple for people to understand. And then we also come up. We charge a 40% fee on every investment. So we bake that in. And then we start marketing it and we start talking to it in our marketing, whether it's emails, text messages, webinars. I do a webinar every week, for example. And we start raising capital to be able to buy the target business, also have growth capital on day one for the target business, and to make some money from the investments on the target business. And so that's our process. And then once we hit our target, then we close on the business, we buy the business, we bring it in, we assimilate it, and now it's a part of our aggregator, and we continue to manage it and scale it up.
That's awesome. What does your ideal investor look like?
Yeah, so our ideal investor is an investor that has at least 25K liquid, whether it's sitting in accounts today or it's in accounts that they can move money out of in a short time frame. It could be even a self-directed IRA, for example. We've had investments coming that way from several of our investors. And then typically they're investors that are looking for passive investments where they're not actively involved. They're looking for passive opportunities where they can trust us to buy a really good business, structure the deal right, manage the business responsibly, keep the business profitable or achieve profitability, scale the businesses up so this way we can maximize the value of the business, and this way we can then sell the business at some point and then unlock value for them and ourselves in the process. So typically that's who we're looking for when it comes to an investor. Male, female, doesn't matter. I would say typically we're finding people that are 40 plus, although we have some people under 40, but most of our investors are 40 plus, even 50s, 60s even. So that's typically like our traditional investor. They fall into those different characteristics.
That's cool. And so being a reg with the Reg CF, they don't have to be accredited necessarily?
No, they don't. Yep. I know it's awesome. I know there's a misconception out there that you have to only work with accredited investors if you're raising capital, but that's not the case. You can use the Reg CF to work with accredited or non. There's limits to how many investments you can take from non, but we're well below it. It's a pretty high number. So the Reg CF works fine for this model currently. We've thought about going to a PE fund model and doing a 506D. We may still at some point, but right now it's not definitively in our plans. Right now we're just working on restructuring the business, going through an audit, and making a run into one of the stock exchanges over the next 6 to 12 months. So,
Oh, wow. That's exciting.
yeah.
That's awesome. Congrats on that.
Yep. Thank you. Yep.
Nice. Well, I'm curious if someone wanted to invest into one of these brands, what does it look like?
Yeah. Well, I would recommend that someone finds our e-commerce investors club group on Facebook if they're just curious, they want to find out more, they want to learn more, or if you want to jump ahead of the pack, there's two different ways you can do that. You can go to arm5formula.com/webinar and you could register for our upcoming webinar. We have a webinar every single week, Thursday at 3 p.m. Eastern typically, unless it's a holiday week, where we educate people on investing in e-com. We go over the opportunities we have, and then people can get their questions answered and they can take massive action and decide to apply to invest with us and go through our application process where they can apply, and they could also book a Zoom meeting to discuss it with us as well. Or you could even jump ahead and we have basically a masterclass, like an auto webinar that people can go through so they don't have to wait, and they can go through this and they can just learn more about the model and what we're doing, and then they can apply from there too. And that's arm5formula.com/build wealth.
Cool. We'll put a link to both of those in the show notes, so it's really easy for anyone to get to. That's awesome. And then from there, after the webinar, did they book a call with you guys, kind of see if they're a right fit?
Yep. Yep. People go to this video page that has a video of me, and then below it is the application. And then after they complete the application, they pick a date and time where they can speak with one of our investment advisors about investing with us, how the program works, what opportunities we have available, anything and everything, basically. And then from there, they can decide that they want to invest.
That's awesome. And I'm curious, where do you see this whole e-com ecosystem going through over the next few years, or just even in 2025? We've seen the market evolve so much. I'm curious, what do you think is going to happen in 2025?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's a lot of things. I mean, for one, AI is going to continue to have an impact on e-com. I mean, it already has, but it's going to continue to have a massive impact on e-com as it gets smarter and smarter. I'm worried about organic traffic, and how that can impact e-com businesses just because of generative AI stealing a lot of organic traffic. It's already happening right now. It's going to continue to happen as well. So you definitely need to be on top of that. I see paid traffic, continuing to grow and be a viable channel. E-com businesses should definitely take advantage of it. Social commerce is big. TikTok obviously is having a massive impact on e-com performance right now. It's going to continue unless for some reason TikTok gets banned. I don't think it's going to happen, but you never know. You definitely don't want to have all your eggs in one basket. So you never want to be 100% reliant on just TikTok, for example, in case that does happen. Personalization on websites with AI and using zero-party data, I think that's going to be huge as well. I'm a big proponent of making sure that you're capturing lots of data. There's many different ways you can do that, whether it's surveys, quizzes, tools like LeadFi or Hero Pixel allows you to capture data on all your contacts. More data you have, the better, because the better marketing you can do that way, because you really want to make sure that you're maximizing the revenue that you can generate from 20% of your audience, the top 20% that's going to spend money with your audience. And data is key to that. Besides that, I mean, I feel like that Amazon's obviously going to continue to dominate and continue to grow e-commerce. They've got deliverability is going to improve with drones. They're already participating in the social commerce game by having their own Instagram type reel feed in the Amazon app. And e-com aggregators are, I think, going to thrive. They've been actually suffering overall since 2021, because 2020 there was a boom, and then a ton of money went to e-com aggregators, and e-com aggregators overall messed up and bought businesses too high of valuations and didn't have really good debt service ratios to service those businesses, and they didn't do a great job of executing on managing and scaling up those companies to service debt. And because of that, you've seen like companies like Thrasio claim bankruptcy, for example. But I do think, though, because of that happening, e-com aggregators are growing still and are going to learn from those lessons. And we're learning from the lessons from the outside looking in, seeing what's happened there, and applied a lot of lessons from that. And we'll see e-com aggregation continue to boom. And because, e-com is not an easy game, to be your own brand and to try to scale up your own brand, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of things going right, and it takes an army, and it takes a lot of money. And because of that, being a part of an e-com aggregator, either by selling your company or by partnering up with them, makes a lot of sense. And that's why we've been doing it. So I feel like e-com aggregators are going to continue to boom and grow, especially as more capital comes into the market. Thank God that, Trump was elected. So, so I'm excited for 2025 and beyond.
Yeah, I think just overall, a lot of consumer confidence right now, and a lot of more investor and operator confidence in the market. Regardless of, people's political, beliefs, I think it's, we're in a really good place, and, the US has a bright future. We need to take a more conservative approach to just paying off our debt in general and making sure that our books are in order. If we really want to be a world power, I was just listening to a podcast earlier today that was talking about how the way that superpowers like come and they go in the world and looking at history. And it's almost like we got so lucky that China has had some challenging issues over the last like 2 years, because if they didn't run into those challenges, they could have wiped us out by now.
Yeah, for sure.
But
Yep.
yeah, I
But I
think
agree, man. We do have
yep,
to be more responsible. And I think that already some of the initiatives that the government's leading and Trump and, his team seems to be also like being a catalyst for is keeping more of our business in the United States. And that's going to also help us be more responsible with our debts as well, since we'll be able to, give the government more money through taxes and things like that, which is fine. It just creates a more healthy economy.
totally. And I think honestly, in that, people freak out when they hear tariffs and like challenges with importing. There's something more that you want to be able to manufacture domestically, if possible. One of the biggest pain in the ass is about, pain in the ass with manufacturing and having a partner manufacturing abroad is tying up cash flow on a boat. It can tie it up for months, 4 to 6 months at a time. And if you're young, taking risks, like you don't really know where the market's going to be in 6 months if you don't have enough data in your business. So, I think becoming more competitively domestically here with manufacturing isn't all of a bad thing at the end of the day.
No, it's a great thing.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. It's going to keep the business in the United States, which is going to feed our economy. As Americans, we should all be passionate about that because we want America to be as great as it can be. And so, I think it had to happen. Because if it continued, to if what was happening in the last 4+ years continued, I mean, it wouldn't lead to a good place.
100%. We're spending money on wars that we didn't have to be a part of. We're taxing you know, we're taxing our citizens way too much, and the money's just moving in the wrong hands. So, yep, yep. Oh, well, I think we can both agree we're excited about what's to come in the new year.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep, for sure. Definitely.
awesome. Well, I know we're about out of time, but the last question I just want to ask is, Josh, what are you doing for fun these days? Besides running Arm Five, and having a little baby at home, like what else are you doing for fun?
Yeah, man. My fun is training, weightlifting, doing some brutal weightlifting workouts, um, doing endurance runs and cycling, playing basketball with my son. And I'm a geek. I'm a total geek. Okay, I'm a total geek. I'll admit it. I'll build models. I'll paint models. I'll roll dice. I'll play tabletop games. I've even started playing Magic the Gathering in the last few months after not playing for 27 years since high school. So I've gotten into stuff like that again, which is cool. I've definitely become much more of a family man, which is great. You know, that's really what I do for fun. Just spend time with family and put time into hobbies and put time into my personal health.
That's awesome. Love that. That's great.
Yeah, simple.
Well, thanks, Josh. Well, thanks for joining today. And this has been a great interview. If anyone wants to get in touch with you about potential investments or wants to follow Connect, where are you at?
So I'm most active on Instagram, although I see that changing in 2025. But go to Instagram, type in Josh Scale, and I should be the first person to come up.
Cool. We'll put that in the show notes as well. Well, thanks for joining today, Josh. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate it.